everybody. I'm delighted to speak to you today. I've got a lot of slides and I'm determined to keep myself to schedule. So what I'd like to talk about today is just talk about the impact on the economy, trends in green recovery, how ST&I might contribute, a little about international initiatives, and then new ways of working. So we've seen dramatic impacts of the pandemic on the economy. There are new challenges and it's led to a significant change in the world order. The world has got some uncertainty, there have been behavioural changes, and more importantly, in a number of countries, we've seen inequalities arise highlighted by the pandemic. And we can see those impacts in both economic and technical data. So this plot shows the growth in GDP in different countries of the world last year. And broadly, green is positive, orange and red are negative. And most of the world was in strong economic growth. This year, this is what the picture looks like. The vast majority of the world is now in economic decrease, with one or two exceptions. And I'm delighted to say that China is one of the countries that's exceeded that. And we can see not just the GDP growth, but these charts show the amount of world trade. So on the left-hand side, we see trade volumes that are going up in merchandise trade. And I just wanted to highlight on the left-hand graph, the green dotted line was the trend before the financial crisis of 2008. The orange dotted line that is below that was the trend in world trade following the economic crisis and the expectation. And the blue line is what's happened. So we've seen two significant impacts upon the degree of trade. And on the right-hand graph, the blue and orange lines show optimistic and pessimistic forecasts of recovery. The inescapable conclusion is that economically there are problems. We can also see this in the trend in air passenger volumes. The bottom is overall volumes. And you can see on the right, there is a demonstration that while domestic flights are partially recovering, international flights remain very low. And that is shown even more clearly here. The blue line is the trend in international flights, and the green line shows flights within the European Union. So you can see that the recovery has been limited to purely domestic flights. If I now look at the UK, sorry, I can hear somebody talking. I wonder if those could mute their microphones. If we look at the UK position, then there has been a significant drop in the GDP and a partial recovery, but you can see right on the right-hand side, the recovery is already showing signs of leveling off. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about this plot, which is the electricity demand in the UK during 2020, the current year. The blue line shows the demand in 2019 and the black line shows the demand in 2020. And I wanted to point out something that is quite strange. If you look at the difference in electricity demand, it is not as great as the impact on the economy. And that shows something about structural changes that are happening within the economy. And that's partly because, of course, people may not be working, but they're still at home, they're still using activity. So we're not in a good position. So what might happen? So the European Union has announced a 750 billion recovery plan, with that money raised from capital markets to restore economic activity. And more importantly, they've said that is going to be invested in a green, digital, social, resilient European Union. And there is a Green Deal. In the UK, our own Prime Minister has announced that the recovery from the pandemic must be green and resilient. So there is a flavour very strongly of this green recovery that's starting to be talked about internationally. But now if we look at the role of science and technology, we can see that as a result of this pandemic, changes in economic practice have been significant. Many more people have worked from home. There has been reduced travel, we've seen big increases in online trading and marketing of consumer goods as well as financial products, and significantly increased data communications through entertainment, streaming, and other work activity. So looking at the recovery initiatives and the changes in economic practice, it is clear we're moving to a different world, and that means innovation will be central to achieving our goals. So some specifics in the UK, the government has said it wants an extra 10 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. It wants to have new technologies in floating offshore wind, and has started to deploy capital to create new manufacturing hubs at ports. And the whole issue is around faster deployment of green technologies. If we take the example of China, just a few weeks ago, President Xi Jinping made two announcements that were very significant on carbon neutrality for China before 2060 and to peak its emissions before 2030. Now, in order to do that, that will require different technologies. And we know that already in China, companies are investing heavily in what we in the West would call green transition technologies. And some of them are listed on the slide there. So we have very similar activities going on. How does this work on collaboration? Well, the UK published last year its International Research and Innovation Strategy, which emphasized on the fact that the UK remained outward facing and open to international partnerships and collaboration. In the case of China, as many of you already know, we have the UK-China Joint Strategy for Science, Technology and Innovation Cooperation, which was signed by Madame Liu in 2017, with our mutual commitment, and I want to emphasize, to drive growth and tackle global challenges through science and innovation. And we've got some examples of things that we've already done under that, work on agricultural technology, work on healthy aging. There are already discussions going on about work in new energy technologies. And there is, of course, a lot of activity on battery technology. Those are just a couple of examples. They don't describe the scope. That's the UK and China. I just very briefly talk about international activity. I currently chair Mission Innovation, an initiative announced at the Paris Climate Conference by 20 countries to double their investment in clean energy innovation funding. And there are a number of examples of what is happening under that initiative in areas where there is active participation by the UK and China on various aspects. At the ministerial held last month for Mission Innovation, the now 25 countries who are members agreed that they would launch early next year a new second phase of Mission Innovation, which would provide the global leadership to stimulate innovation in clean energy. And there's some of the potential missions that they will undertake are shown down there. And the UK and China are co-leading the Power Mission, which looks at how to integrate very high levels of renewable power into energy systems. So we have a need created by the pandemic. We have a common view about stimulating a green recovery and the importance of innovation, and we have international platforms into which both the UK and China dock. We have seen over the last several months a totally new way of working that has involved virtual meetings, even at ministerial and head of government level, new ways of running webinars and conferences, and new ways of collaborating. So I'd like to finish by just saying that we have had these major impacts from the pandemic. We've had a lot of people now talking about the green recovery, and I would like to say the UK and China have been prominent in that. And in all of that, science, technology, innovation will be key. I believe the UK and China are both extremely well placed to contribute to that recovery and to that science and technology and innovation thing. We have very strong existing frameworks to enable that collaborative approach. But I would say we may have common aims, but in the new world, we may also be innovating in collaboration practices to perform this innovation, given what may be ongoing restrictions in how we work. So with that, I'd like to finish.